There are a few occasions when we are called upon to swear an oath to the Queen. For instance, getting called to the bar or becoming a Canadian citizen. 3 people have been fighting in Ontario for the right to become a Canadian without having to swear an oath. They say it violates their freedom of religion, conscience, and speech. A judge has already ruled against them, except when it comes to their freedom of speech. Ottawa has said it'll fight this case all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. And if people don't want to swear that oath to the Queen, then they don't have to become Canadian citizens. What about you? What do you think about this? Have you ever had to swear an oath to the Queen? Should that be something that is required under certain circumstances? Do you think it might be time to do away with that oath and swear an oath of allegiance to uphold the laws of Canada instead? My guest to take your calls on this is immigration lawyer Raj Sharma of Stewart Sharma Harsanyi. Our toll-free number is 1-866-468-4422. That's 1-866-68-4422. You can send an email to alberta@noon@cbc.ca or a tweet to alberta@noon. Welcome back to the program, Raj.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. So why don't we begin by just talking about what some of the circumstances would be that we would be called upon to swear an oath to Her Majesty the Queen?
Donna, we swear an oath to the Queen. Typically, individuals that come to Canada, they're permanent residents, and they want to become a citizen. The oath is an integral part of becoming a Canadian citizen. And beyond that, of course, you do have to take an oath for certain types of government jobs.
Okay. And there is a case making its way through the courts in Ontario about this. Can you tell us what that case is about?
Sure. In brief, there's a trio of individuals in Ontario that object to swearing an oath to the Queen. Now, they're fully prepared to swear an oath to Canada and upholding Canada's laws. They object to swearing an oath to the Queen on religious and conscience, on grounds of on their moral conscience.
And one of them, I guess, is an Irishman who feels that, as a Republican, he could not do that. Another is a Rastafarian who believes that she couldn't do it for religious reasons, and as well as the third person who claims that in his Jewish faith he would not be able to swear an oath to the Queen.
Right, and he, I think, he feels that the Queen represents entrenched privilege, the lower level court decided against them and basically said the issue is that they're taking the oath too literally.
Okay,
and so I think I think that's where the issue that a lot of individuals have is: are you going to swear an oath to the British monarchy? I mean, this is a dysfunctional family at best, and does represent entrenched privilege.
And what do you think about this? I mean, do you think this is a case that could make its way to the Supreme Court of Canada?
I'm not sure. Courts are blunt instruments. I'm not sure if they're the right forum to decide these sorts of policy. I mean, ultimately, and personally, I feel that the British monarchy sort of inculcates, unthinking credulity and servility. My personal opinion is that we've taken steps to transcend the monarchy. No one's calling for an abolition of the monarchy. Some people are, but I think it's time to transcend the monarchy. It's time to grow up. We've repatriated the Constitution. The fact is that we seem to have associated the Queen with, well, all that is good, but I think the monarchy comes with a lot of baggage.
All right. And well, what do you think about the federal government's argument in this, that if you don't like swearing an oath, then don't become a Canadian citizen, or don't get called to the bar if you don't want to affirm your how would you say it, your loyalty and fealty to the constitutional monarchy in Canada? I don't know what the words would be if you were called to the bar and you decided to affirm instead. But what do you think of that argument, that don't become a Canadian citizen?
Right, and the argument is that, look, immigrants knew what they were getting into. They chose to immigrate to Canada, which is a member of the Commonwealth and, of course, has long ties to the House of Windsor and the United Kingdom. So you knew what you were getting into, so you can't really complain about it right now. The argument doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold water because immigrants don't sign away their rights before they come to Canada. Once they're here, they're entitled to speak out in favor of their rights and to change the system. not just for themselves, but for other people as well.
All right, let's hear what our listeners have to say. My guest today is Raj Sharma. He's an immigration lawyer with Stewart Sharma and Harsanyi, and we're asking you, should you continue to be required to swear an oath to the Queen in order to become a Canadian citizen? What do you think about this? Should you have to swear an oath to uphold the laws of Canada instead, for instance, or an alternative to swearing an oath to the Queen? 1-866-468-4422 is our phone number. Our email address is alberta@noon@cbc.ca, and our Twitter handle is alberta@noon. We'll go first to, first we got a tweet from Carol who says, would you be willing to swear an oath to the Queen, and should this ever be required? No, no, and no. And then we will go to Ted, who's on the line in Black Diamond. Hi, Ted. What do you think about this?
Well, I'm not a loyalist or a royalist by heart, but this is Canada, and this is part of the makeup of Canada. So if a person doesn't I know. For example, I'm not a big fan of the federal government, at least this one, and maybe the next one I won't like either. But and they'll use this politically, of course, as they will. But I don't have to be a loyalist or royalist, but I am a Canadian, and so I accept the Queen, and that's part of the deal. If you want to go to another country, if you want to join Russia or United States or China, then go ahead.
Can I just ask you, though, Ted, if you were a landed immigrant and wanted to become a Canadian citizen, and you had religious concerns about swearing an oath in this way, do you think that it's perhaps time to change the words in the oath? Or the idea of...
you can practice any religion you want here, or mythology or whatever in this country, but if you want to... change the actual structure. That seems to be working okay. There is some issues with Quebec and stuff, but like most of the people in this country for a long time, including the new immigrants, myself included, is an old immigrant. But I do believe one of the reasons that makes this country great is that we do have something that's a little different than the United States, which they keep calling us the 51st state. And underneath this government, we may as well be the 51st state. But in my opinion, you're in Canada. If you want, like I said, if you want to if you want to take your religion to another country, take it to Russia and see how they deal with it.
All right. Thanks so much for sharing your views with us, Ted. We appreciate it. Your thoughts, Raj?
Well, a number of great points. And I think to some degree, a lot of valid points. I mean, there are some historical grounds for keeping it, and it is distinctive. That being said, I mean, I don't know if this is the hill to kind of die on in terms of an oath to the Queen, personally. And I think people don't understand that the oath to the Queen is not a sacred cow. They were willing to change it 20 years ago. Jean Chrétien and the then Minister of Citizenship and Immigration certainly were going to change it. They felt that it was outdated. They felt that people's eyes were glazing over when they were swearing an oath to the Queen, her heirs and successors, and they wanted to come up with something a little bit more meaningful. And I think that people are swearing this oath to the Queen, and 90% plus are swearing this oath to the Queen because it's meaningless to them. So why don't we bring in some more meaning to this and actually have people affirm or swear an oath that actually resonates in their heart?
That's a very interesting point, too. We appreciate that. And we're going now to Jorge, who's on the line in Edmonton. Jorge, what about you? Do you agree that newcomers to Canada should swear an oath to the Queen in order to become Canadian citizens?
Hello, Donna. Yes,
Hi.
Absolutely. In my personal opinion, I think it's very important, and I'm an immigrant in the last 10 years, and I don't make my oath yet, but I'm planning to do it the next year, or this year if it's possible. If you come to Canada and you want to be Canadian, you should embrace the Canadian culture, which includes the monarchy. You cannot desire to be Canadian choosing one part and another part is not convenient or is not suitable for me. If you become Canadian, you need to be 100% Canadian, and you need to embrace the culture who is receiving you, and that includes the monarchy. I cannot wait to go to my oath and make my oath, and that includes the monarchy, and embrace it and learn to love the country where you are. If you cannot do that, well, I think you are in the wrong country.
Jorge, thank you so much for expressing your views. And we'll go to Lizette, who's on the line now. Raj, calling in Calgary. Lizette, what are your thoughts on this?
Hi. Well, I couldn't agree more with Raj Sharma. I think that the oath is outdated. I think in a country where we claim to be inclusive, where we have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms that prevents people from being discriminated against, basically what we're doing with this oath and excluding people from the ability to become Canadians based on our view of the superiority of an oath to a queen, if it doesn't fall in line with their religious views, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I agree with him that it's something that I think should be changed to have more meaning. I'm proud of being a Canadian. I'm a patriot. And it's interesting because as a Canadian-born citizen, I'm not obligated to do the same thing that an immigrant would be. I'm never obligated to make that oath. So okay. I just don't think it's fair.
What do you make of Jorge's point, though, Lizette, who feels very passionately that when you are becoming a Canadian, you accept the whole package and you swear that oath to Her Majesty proudly?
It's interesting because I am a child of immigrants, of Latin American immigrants. I can tell that Jorge is as well. And to me, one of the great things about being Canadian is being able to question those things and to say, no, this doesn't sit well with me, and to question my government and to move for change. So to me, that is actually part of being Canadian, and that's part of what my parents were very proud to come here, and they made those oaths. But now I'm here, and I'm a Canadian, and I'm just as invested as everyone else. And I don't agree. I think that they have the right to be able to question those things.
Thank you very much for the call. And Raj, just before I bring you back in, I want to share an email that we received from Owen in Edmonton who says, I have just moved to Edmonton from Ireland. My family and I love Canada and hope to stay here for many years to come, but I would personally find it difficult to swear an oath to the Queen. While she seems like a very nice lady, it is the symbolism her office represents that bothers me, he says. Any hereditary office is inherently undemocratic. He says, I understand that for many Canadians this may appear strange. The monarchy is part of Canadian history, but for those people who arrived first in this land, and many of those peoples who are newly arrived, an oath of allegiance to the Queen is a step too far. And I just want to find out from you too, Raj, because this would probably reflect one of the individuals who is actually challenging this case at the appeals court in Ontario, Owen's email, because one of the people challenging is an Irish man who has worked in Canada for many, many decades, but would feel very uncomfortable as an Irish Republican swearing an oath to the Queen. But do you get many clients who say, I find this distasteful, I cannot swear an oath to the Queen?
No, I don't. And I asked my assistant before I came on whether she would have any issues. She's a permanent resident, and I asked her whether she would have any issues to swear an oath to the Queen, and she didn't. And I think it goes back to the point that they think this is meaningless. There's no meaning when these people, their eyes glaze over when they're swearing an oath to the heirs, and I think most people are just pronounce it heirs. And I think it's interesting. They're preferring form over substance. CIC took or denied a man citizenship because an officer thought that a man was mouthing the words to the oath and not reciting them. And they pulled him out in front of his family and denied him the oath. And that was done in error. They're now trying to find this man who was wrongly denied his Canadian citizenship, because where does it end? Like, it becomes this sort of Orwellian, a thought police, right? Like, okay, are you saying the words? Are your vocal cords vibrating? Are you enunciating these words? And, it doesn't make any sense. I agree with the email that we received. A hereditary monarchy, and this has been said many times before, a hereditary monarchy makes as much sense as a hereditary doctor. And if the Queen represents the rule of law, well, the rule of law is that all individuals are equal before the law, and the law is the supreme. And so I don't know. The government's argument in this court case is that the Queen represents the rule of law. I would dispute that. I don't know how a constitutional or a hereditary monarchy can possibly represent the rule of law.
Oh my goodness, we're going in all different directions with this conversation.
let's go back to the Magna Carta, this 13th century document which superseded the monarchy. Why is there a Magna Carta? It's because there's this monarchy, and we got these sort of fundamental rules out of this document. So no, I think the monarchy is not representative of the rule of law. It probably is anathema to the rule of law.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, and thank you for that email, Owen. We'll go now to Edmonton, where David's on the line. Hi, David. What are your thoughts on this? Would you swear an oath to the Queen in order to become a Canadian citizen?
Well, I did swear an oath when I became a civil servant of Her Majesty, and it was to the Queen of Canada, not to the Queen of the United Kingdom. They're two different offices. It happened to be the same person. That might not necessarily be the case in the future, but...
Thank you for clarifying that, because I misspoke myself. You are correct.
And I was quite happy to do so. My wife, when she became a Canadian citizen, swore an oath as well. I'd just like to comment on the notion that the monarchy is an anathema and it doesn't represent the rule of law, that we have crown attorneys because it's the state that is involved in the criminal law, so we don't have a rule of vengeance as opposed to a rule of law. We happen to have a head of state who it's hereditary, and it may not be perfect, but quite frankly, hereditary choice strikes me as being superior if it can be superseded, as it has been in the past, if the family gets out of control.
David, I appreciate that point, but I don't want to get too far down that road, because it is about swearing an oath. It's not about whether or not we support being a constitutional monarchy. This conversation.
That's part of. You're swearing an oath of support to the state, and the head of state is the representative of the state in this case. And but your guest did talk about whether we should have a constitutional monarchy, and so I was just responding to that. Is that having an election to do this, brings politics into it, and we want the state to be to some extent above politics.
Yeah, it's a great point. Thank you so much for making it, David. And we received an email from Dennis, who writes just about this idea that the Queen is the head of state. Every country on the planet requires the new citizens make an oath to the states, to the state. This is a legally binding agreement. In republics, the head of state is the president. In our country, the head of state is the Queen. The oaths of allegiance reflect these realities. Thanks very much, Dennis. And we are going to Sam now, who is on the line in Calgary. Hello, Sam. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, this is all symbolic, and it is in everyday's Canadians' life. This office of the highest office is irrelevant and does not make any decision, including the Governor General is not even appointed by the Queen, is appointed by the Prime Minister. And to me, the biggest issue that I have is the wasteful money that because of this office that the Canadian taxpayers are paying. And when this is such irrelevant, and this head of a state does not even live in this land, is overseas, it makes it even more irrelevant. And when the major decisions are made by the House of Commons in Canada and only being signed by the Governor General as a representative, which is not even appointed directly by the Queen. I mean, the whole.
You disagree with it, then, and it's really good to get your thoughts on that, Sam. I just want to hear from as many people as we can, because we're almost out of time, and I want to make sure you get to comment too, Raj. Thank you, Sam. And we are going now to Leslie, who's on the line in Lethbridge. What are your thoughts, Leslie?
Well, I'm not a big monarchist, but it is part and parcel of who we are. I would rather see new citizens swear to uphold the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, for example, than just the laws. But this is an issue for the nation as a whole, and I don't like looking at it as kind of a backdoor through the the issue of simply of immigration.
Yeah, because they're actually denied their citizenship for not swearing their allegiance to the Queen.
Well, I think they should swear their allegiance, and then the country as a whole looks at it. It's not an issue just for new citizens. It's an issue for the whole country. And I've been to a few citizenship courts, and I'm just appalled at what your guest is saying. I've never seen people's eyes glaze over, ever. And I just think that's ridiculous. So those are my 2 points.
Well, thank you for making both of them, Leslie. We appreciate it. And would you like to respond, Raj?
Well, I think we're getting a really good sort of feedback from the callers. Luckily, again, from my point of view, luckily the British monarchy reigns but not rules.
I think what your point that I was trying to take, or that I was getting from your point about the eyes glazing over, was that perhaps the ceremony had meaning, but those words perhaps did not.
Those specific words from Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, and that specific line, I think individuals are glazing over.
Let's see if we can get Benjamin on here from Edmonton. Benjamin, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, my thoughts on this is some of these people who are making these issues a big deal that it must be changed. Before they came here, some of them, before they migrated here, they knew that the Queen reigns in Canada, is the head here in Canada before they migrated here. So they knew very well before they came to Canada that the Queen, and if they have issue with the Queen, then in the first place, they shouldn't have come here. And if they are here now, they shouldn't push. It's a choice. We all have our rights. And to become a Canadian, it's a choice. You become a PR before you become a Canadian. And therefore, if you think that the Queen swearing oath or allegiance to the Queen is a problem, then you remain as a PR.
Yeah. Benjamin, thank you so much for expressing your views. We appreciate it. And there's another caller who believes that the oath, you got to accept it. And Ed tweeted something similar. Ed says, we're a monarchy, kind of black and white. Until we no longer have one, we swear the oath. Same for you if you join the military. Raj, it's very interesting to hear that, obviously many of the people who are immigrants think we should keep it the way it is. What do you make of that?
Well, I think, you have this sort of perspective with new immigrants, and I would call it akin to this concept of the breastplate of righteousness. So once you're here, you become like this, very sort of over-the-top Canadian, right? And I think that might take a generation or two until you start looking at things critically and saying, well, no, I'm as Canadian as everyone else, and I don't need to wear a Canadian flag on my lapel.
I think you've just introduced a new reason for more people to call. Raj, thank you so much. It's always great to have your insights. Thanks for today.
My pleasure.
That is Raj Sharma. He's an immigration lawyer with Stewart Sharma and Harsanyi. And you have lots to say on this. Our apologies if you didn't make it on. Please call our talkback line 1-800-461-9219. Send an email to alberta@noon@cbc.ca or a tweet to alberta@noon. And we will do our best to get your comments on an upcoming show. Have a wonderful afternoon.